If speaking with successful people, by the way, it's 𝗠𝗔𝗍, they always say seize your time well and, every waking up minute, use your time well and things like that. And a lot of successful people are waking up early and all this kind of stuff. I was just wondering, how do you stay organized? Do you use your time well? I think Warren Buffett says that, Bill Gates always says that, especially Mark Cuban. These people are always saying every minute is valuable, and here you are doing some live streams. And of course you're extremely successful, and I just wanted to know how you stay organized, as I have some trouble with that.
I mean, I don't know, I think you have to be productive, but I don't know that every minute is, I said earlier that, I think people spend their lives wasting time, and what really matters is that eureka moment often. You obviously can't spend your whole day smoking and wait for the eureka moment. You have to work and try to bring it about. But it's easy for Bill Gates to say. Yeah, so I think it's more important to find inspiration, because you can waste your time and still seize every minute. So, and it's easy for Bill Gates to say the guy hasn't done anything in 30 years. So what's he done? Other than give away all his money, the guy hasn't been productive or effective in 30 years. So for him to give us advice about, how to seize every moment, I mean, maybe it still applies, but I think people kind of tend to, most advice isn't worth it. Anyway.
How do you stay organized? Because I have trouble with this. So I'm just wondering, from your, how do you stay organized? Do you use technology?
I just think ignore everything other than what you're trying to accomplish, even if that means you're ignoring showering and you're ignoring fundamental things that you shouldn't be ignoring. And focus on that one thing you have to accomplish, and then you'll be fine. Turn everything off, go lock yourself in a room and do it, and focus until you're done. That's my advice.
All right, thank you.
I picked Baruch College over Ivy League because I had a lot of childhood problems. I wasn't exactly ready for the maturity that you require to go to a top college. It's kind of a late bloomer in some ways, a very early bloomer in other ways. Early bloomer in that way, A lot of the other students, their mothers would see what I was up to. They would want to learn more about their son's friends. But other than that, I was a late bloomer in other ways, Just a lot of impatience, a lot of immaturity. That was what was going on with me when I was 15 and 16. I didn't want to go to school a lot, even though I was a gifted student. I've matured a little bit, a little bit better than before.
I just want to know, what keeps you going in terms of happiness? What makes, what keeps you from being depressed? I'm sure, money isn't it, because, you've had money for a while now. I'm just wondering.
No, money will make you depressed. I think it's,
What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Family, family's not always great. Family can cause depression too. But there's something about, the unconditional support of somebody in your life. It might not be family, it might be friends, it might be a lover. It could be something as stupid as an animal sometimes. But if you have something that unconditionally cares about you, it can pull you through, I'd say, just about anything. And for me, a lot of times it's my coworkers, because, like many things, just like family, sometimes they can lose faith in you. But oftentimes there's at least one person in your company that says, I went into the breach with this guy, and I'm going to come out of it with him too, one way or the other. And those people can be motivating as well. So I think as long as you're trying to do something, you can find that inspiration. The problem with depression is that people who are depressed aren't trying to do anything, And so when I'm depressed, or when I suffer from a depressive episode, it's no easier than anybody else's. And there are no solutions. That's the whole point. It's a paradox. And there's no...
On that note, as a former guy, how do you feel about antidepressants in general?
They have very modest efficacy. They have good safety profiles, which is why they're used by so many people. But as I explained to the caller earlier, there's very little biology that's terribly useful in designing new antidepressants. So the efficacy has been limited for so long. And I think hopefully that will start to change in the near future, thanks to drugs like ketamine and others. But, it just, depression is one of the weirdest things. I just read the obituary of a man who killed himself, who was a Wall Street big success story. It was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal the other day. And it's so mystifying, what goes on in the human brain that leads someone to that decision path, It's terrifying. And, it's sort of, just one of these things that we don't quite understand too well. And, I think all humans at some point have a major depressive episode. I'm very, very glad that I don't have a major depressive disorder, which is a recurring sort of constant, if you will, depression. But I know people who have that, and it's debilitating. It can be every bit as debilitating as somebody who is paraplegic. So I there's no easy answer. I wish I had it, and all the stupid advice of be around people you love and try to find things you enjoy. None of it makes a lot of sense to somebody who's actually in the throes of a depressive episode. There's nothing that can explain it. There's nothing that can be said or done. And I think in some ways, just knowing that there's other people that have been through it, there can be a little bit of solace to that. So anyway, I appreciate the call.
No, I love music. The problem is, I love everything. So there's not enough time in the day to do all the things that we all love. I mean, people who have depression, they have the opposite problem, right? There's nothing that they like. And I have a family member with significant depression. My good friend here, Tony, knows. I want to be a musician, I want to be a software programmer, I want to run drug companies, I want to be a historian. There's nothing, I'd sing opera, whatever, everything seems so cool and fun that I just don't have the time to do it. But I have been making drugs for treatment-resistant depression. We're praying that these drugs work, and then if they work, hopefully there's people like this person in my family who could benefit from them. But the thing about depression is there's got to be at least one person at this table, if not half of us, that have taken antidepressant at some point. And they're not very effective. They're very cheap, which is great, but they're not very effective. They're very safe, which is great. They don't have many side effects. But there's people who fail 2 or 3 or sometimes 9. My family member failed 9 different antidepressants and still has such severe depression this person can't work. They've never finished high school or college. It's like a disability. And the drug I'm working on is actually, you joked MDMA, it's actually ketamine, which is, a strange choice, but it seems to work. It is a wonder drug. Sorry? Yeah, there's been a number of clinical trials. We have this startup competitor in New Jersey called Johnson & Johnson. They're, I don't know what they think they're doing, but they have 7 phase 3 trials of their ketamine. It's an intranasal spray. Right now, ketamine is available as an IV. So if you had to take an IV every day, you probably wouldn't want to do that. So the spray is a little more convenient, hopefully. Psilocybin's very interesting. I've looked at it. No one's really sure what it does. It could be PTSD. It could be... People are reluctant to try new things. Let me finish. People are reluctant to try FDA-approved drugs, right? So you're advocating taking a hit of E somewhere. There's a lot of people out there that aren't as open-minded as you.
Jesus Christ, you definitely have ADHD. It's a real thing, no doubt. There is a spectrum of attention. A lot of theorists believe that autism is actually kind of the reverse of ADHD. So it's sort of the ability to pay too much attention to something. And so the brain has a hard job to do. We're constantly getting arguably uncountable numbers of stimulus from all directions at once. And the ability for the brain to tune in onto relevant stimuli it's very difficult, right? The brain's not really sure what to listen to. And it's amazing, if you walk through a park talking to your friend, you can actually focus on your friend as opposed to, or in a cocktail party or something, you can focus on the one conversation you're having with someone. Meanwhile, you have all kinds of things going around. Your brain somehow is able to tune into one thing. And same concept if you're reading a book. All these things pop into your head, and your ability to actually sit there and read the book and understand it and not have other memories intrude. If you think of the word water, there's literally 1 trillion neural network connections in your brain with different experiences that'll fire all at once. And people who have different brain morphology and synaptic connections will respond differently to different stimuli. This applies as well to schizophrenia and other disorders. So ADHD is most definitely real. I think that there are people with extremely mild ADHD that don't have severe ADHD, needless to say. A probability distribution function, by its definition, will always have people to the left of 0 and people to the right of 0, and some mean and some standard deviation. And if you have 4 standard deviation ADHD, you can't learn anything. You can't focus. If you have 3 standard deviation, maybe it's not that bad. If you have 2, it's even less bad. And if you have 1, it's sort of like you're normal. You're just a little more skewed towards being less attentive versus someone who's more skewed to being more attentive. And then if you're plus 2 sigma or plus 3 sigma or plus 4 sigma, at some point you may be even so socially awkward that because you're so good at fixating on specific isolated pieces of information, people might say you have Asperger's or autism or something. So I think it's most definitely real. I just think one has to understand that it's not this overwhelming phenomenon. People with autism have rallied around this concept of calling people neurotypical versus neuroatypical. Because people with autism, many of them don't feel like they have a disorder. They feel like they are just different, neuroatypical, and that everyone else who doesn't have autism is neurotypical. So while I think ADHD is sometimes overdiagnosed, at the same time, both ends of the spectrum are overdiagnosed, autism and ADHD, because both are undesirable. To be a little politically incorrect, quite frankly, both present with learning disability challenges on the left side and more social disability challenges on the right side. And we all kind of want to be right in the middle, which makes sense. We want to balance too much attention with too little attention. If you pay too little attention to stimuli, you won't be able to learn anything. If you pay too much attention to stimuli, you'll kind of be this overly fixated, socially awkward type of person. So in the middle is the happy place. Having said that, we're all different, and there's way more characteristics than just those two. So I think, someone's neuro sort of psychiatric makeup is a difficult thing to comprehend, but that's really my 2 cents on it. Yeah, in fact, there's some people born with, there's the middle part that divides the left and the right is called the corpus callosum, and some people are born with something called agenesis of the corpus callosum, and they don't make a corpus callosum, so they don't have something that passes between the left and the right. It's pretty crazy.
So how do you teach yourself? Reading
I don't
books?
know. That's actually a good question. A lot of people ask that question. There's one guy who wrote this book. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Yeah.
It's a great film. And if you like sports or anything like that, it's a good film to watch. And this kid becomes a national chess champion. This guy's a real person. And he actually then became the national Tai Chi champion, which is a different discipline. It's martial art. It's physical, right? Tai Chi's not Taekwondo, but it's still physical. And so this guy wrote a book. His name's Josh Waitzkin, and he wrote a book. It's semi-autobiography and it's semi-instruction manual on how he learned these 2 totally different, disparate things. And I think that very few people actually study the art of learning itself, which is something that truly is its own subject. And I think that anyone can learn anything. And Khan Academy is a good example. That's their motto, actually, is you can learn anything. I think it's really inspiring, and we're doing this thing nobody knows about yet, but we're pharmaceutical executives. You see a few of my coworkers here, and we do pharma. That's all we do for the last decade. We actually started a new tech company, and we haven't told anyone about it yet, but when it comes out, I think it's going to be pretty big news. And it turns out that we're programming this thing. It's a totally different discipline from what we're used to, but we picked it up, and we took this approach of not being afraid of this weird and strange subject matter, which, by the way, pharmaceuticals, it sounds weird and strange. These words are so big and they're so scary, and oh my god, I can't tackle it. But the reality is, once you get into it, and you're a PhD student candidate, like, once you get through the big words, you realize that it's just a normal subject like any other. So this guy taught history at my high school. She went to my high school too. And we passed around these manuscripts. We were like reading John Locke or something. We all have to read one sentence. We go around the room reading a sentence. And it's like monotonous. And finally comes to me and I'm like asleep. So someone taps me on the shoulder and it's like, you're up next. And I'm reading this thing that's like, man is the epitome of society or something like that. And I'm reading and everyone breaks out laughing. And I'm like, man is the epitome of society. What? And they're like, it's epitome, Martin. And that was probably the most embarrassing day of my life. But no, I think scientific words scare people from doing something really valuable. Programming as well is like this really cool skill everyone should know. But nobody wants to learn it because it's like, oh, variables, functions, oh my god, and I get frightened of it.